Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
All right, so I'm here with Mannywellz, originally from Nigeria.
Yeah.
So tell me, your family came out here. You came out here in the early 2000s. Your dad come out here earlier. Just kind of tell a backstory about that, man, because you sharing it with me during lunch, and it was really tough. I was like, man, I'm glad I heard this before, because it would have been tough to hear all of this live on the stream. But
Yeah.
just tell us the backstory.
Yeah, so I was born in Nigeria. I came to the States in 2003, and my dad was already in the United States in '97. So we pretty much came on a visiting visa, and yeah, we overstayed the visa.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was 9 years old when I came, so I didn't know anything. I was just told that, look, we're going to a new country. We're gonna be with your dad, and you're gonna love it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we came to the States and whatnot. Later on, I found out that we weren't like fully legally situated. So when people think immigrants, they always think of like the Latino community, or coming here on a boat, or like, you know, prior to popular belief, I came here on a plane. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I like how you clarified. Hey, just to be clear, wasn't smuggled over here on a
you know
boat.
What I'm saying? Like we came here on the plane, and no knock to anybody that was like snuggles, like, but the Daca community, or like the undocumented community, is very wide. Like, everybody's situation is different, but we all share that common story where it's like we don't have all the, you know, legalities, or if that's a word, in place, like a U.S. citizen. So, you know, fast forward, I'm like 16. I wanted to get a driver's license like my friends. All my friends are getting their permits. Their parents are getting them like their first cars and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I wanna go get my permit, and my peoples are like, that's you can't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't do that? Like,
Yeah.
everybody's driving, you know? And they're like, yeah, you can't do that. I wanted to get a job, make some money.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So everything I had to do was kind of like under the table. So I started buying phones and like flipping it, selling, you know what I'm saying, finding cheap phones and selling it, buying Jordans, flipping it. I didn't drive till I was like 20, like 19, 20, but because of DACA. You know what I'm saying? Like, DACA came through.
Yeah.
Obama talked about it, brought it up in like 2012 and 2013. It became kind of like official, and I became a DACA recipient, my little sister and I. And that's when I was able to get my permit and get a car, social security number, start an LLC, start a business. My sister and I were 2 years apart, So like, a big reason why I even left school was because, one, I had music that I could just pursue, but two, we couldn't afford to pay tuition for myself and my little sister, so I dropped out so that she could finish, you know, school. And glory be to God, she just finished her master's. You know what I'm saying? So like, I had to make.
Congratulations to her.
Thank you, man.
That's amazing.
So I had to like make that sacrifice for her to do that, and you know, I'm grateful for the life I live, but in the current climate, it's a very interesting space to be.
Right. So let's back up a little bit, because I think there's so much here. Now I told you I have family that came here on travel visas, overstayed. They're welcome, right? So just to backtrack, one, your dad comes out here in '97, you said?
Yeah.
And your family didn't come out here in 2003.
Yep.
So your dad comes out here initially. He kind of gets some things situated, and then he has you guys come over. And the thing that I wanted to first point out is that, one, how much tenacity and ingenuity that takes for somebody to come over, establish themselves, make enough money, the sacrifice on the marriage, the sacrifice on just how hard that must have been. Your dad is a believer. Your dad's a Christian. And he comes over. He gets everything situated. You then come over in 2003. So there's a gap. I mean, that's a couple years that your dad wasn't there. So there's a sacrifice there, but also just anybody's desire for a better life. You know what I mean? Especially now, and we'll get to SARS later, but especially coming out now, what's happening in Nigeria with SARS and all these different things. There's a lot of folks seeking to improve their situation, and it's interesting how our posture, or some Christians' posture, they want to legislate a lot of morality. They want to legislate a lot of laws, but when it comes to what the scriptures actually say about caring for, you know, the foreign and all those kinds of things, and we're going to pull up some of those verses here shortly. So tell me a little bit more about your dad, because your dad's story is really cool. He's a musician. He's a minister. And how did all of this play out for him?
So my dad, big music lover, also a musician, like, you know, first person to like really put me on stage. I remember the first weekend I came to the United States, I was like 9. He had a show, and at his show he gives me a mic to sing background vocals for him. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, it's when I take naps.
He got the nap. Yes, I got a nap calendar schedule.
I gotta give like 30 minutes sometimes.
There you go.
But yeah, so like I remember just that weekend, my first weekend in the States, he's like, okay, here's a mic. And I'm like, oh, shoot. So he's a musician, big lover of Christ. Like when I was younger, he would just like sit us down. We went through like Genesis to like, I think we got all the way to like Psalms, chapter by chapter, word by word. And we got to Psalms and certain scriptures, okay, memorize this, memorize that. And like that scripture where it's like, train a child in the way it should go. When he gets old, he won't depart from it. Like, that's such a real thing, you know, like people who train their child and train their children in numerous ways, but he made sure like he wanted to root us in Christ, and we didn't understand it then because we were so annoyed, like, why is he making us memorize? This is boring. So he did that. He came, like I said, he came in 97, but he wasn't fully legally situated until like, 2000 and maybe 7 or 8, and as he was, when he got situated, my grandfather had passed. Then he went back to Nigeria. On his way back, he got arrested because the first time he visited Nigeria in like 2000, he had traveled on somebody else's passport, which is, you know, illegal, and he served his time, which was supposed to be 6 months. So, but after that, they told him to come back and pick up his green card, and then they locked him up for like a year plus for no reason.
This is in America.
This is in America.
Jeez.
So like.
And what year was this?
Oh, this is probably like 2000 and between like 2008 to like maybe 10. We were going through all of that. Like, I was 16, 15, like in high school, 10th grade. Trying to focus in class, but trying to understand like what's going on with like my family and stuff like that. The whole family dynamic changed. And you know.
So your dad had his green card.
Yeah.
But at one point he traveled back to Nigeria. I'm assuming probably before he legally got his green card, used somebody else's passport. Comes back, gets everything cleaned up, but that thing from way back ends up they ding him for it. He's supposed to serve 6 months, be done with it, but then they just kept prolonging it. And he was then sitting in this jail for over a year. Sheesh.
So he was in jail for like 2 years, I think, in total. And then he was like, "Look, can you just send me back to my country, Nigeria?" And then that's how he ended up in Nigeria.
And so he was deported.
Yeah, he was deported.
Sheesh.
Yep.
So you're the second Christian artist I know whose dad was deported. RG. His dad was also
exactly.
deported.
That's
And it's another one of these like random technicalities on, you know what I mean? Like and so, man, so he goes back, and now you're growing up. You missed out years with your dad as a kid. Now you're a teenager, and in the midst of all this, your dad gets deported. And how do you process all that at the time?
I didn't process it as I was just moving through it. I was just going through. I really didn't process it until like 3 years ago. Like, man, I had to grow up. At 16, I had to become like more emotionally aware. Like, how am I there for my mom and my sister? Because a father figure is just, I think, is really important in a household. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm not the dad, but how could I be a better man at 16, 17? And I made mistakes, but like, I was forced to grow up. And you know, the relationship between my dad and I just grew because now, like, I was kind of like in his space.
You the man of the house.
I'm the man of the house. Yeah. So, you know, he would just call me and encourage me. Like, he's always proud of me. Like, he tells me to this day, and I'm grateful for that experience. But I think it really hit me like 3 years ago, 3 years ago. Like, oh my God, like I've been a young dad kind of because I have 3 younger siblings. I'm the oldest of 4, but then I have like 2 siblings who are like 10, 11 years apart. So they're like 15 and 13 now, and it's like I had to care for them. My mom then had to like pick up 2 jobs, and figure out how to care for the family and try to figure out how we're gonna pay for school. And my sister, like I said, is only 2 years younger than I. So when it was time to like go to school, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do music. Let's figure out how to pay for my younger sister to finish college. And you know, I'm grateful for where I am right now. But it's been a long journey, man.
Yeah. So your dad loves Jesus, brings you up in the faith. You know, you guys are memorizing verses, sacrifices to get you here, gets deported because of a technicality. Now you're growing up without your father. You're technically not situated or legal. Neither is your mom, correct?
Sister.
And your sister.
Yeah.
And then you have to obviously still figure out how to eat, pay for rent, put food on the table. You become the man of the house. And then in what year did DACA kind of pass? And can you kind of explain what DACA is for those folks that a lot of you guys don't understand why so many of us were upset with Donald Trump trying to overturn DACA, especially those of us that come from as immigrants. I'm a refugee. I'm an immigrant. I got family here that are immigrants. The majority of people who make it over here are not. You basically get the best of the best when immigrants are coming over. You're not getting, you know, just kind of average people. You're getting people that got a ton of ingenuity, a ton of grind, a ton of hustle to be able to orchestrate what Manny's dad was able to orchestrate in getting himself here, then getting his family here. So 2012-ish, Obama's in office, right? They passed this thing called DACA. Can you explain what that is?
So DACA is childhood arrivals. Deferred actions for childhood arrivals, DACA. And pretty much what that does, or what that did for us, was it allowed us to stay in the United States, work, pay in-state tuition, you know, get a social security number, a work authorization, and to do, you know, certain things like get a job, drive. You know,
you couldn't do any of this.
I could not do anything. If not for DACA, I wouldn't have been able to drive to you. Like, I would probably had a friend. Like, my friends and homies were taking me everywhere. Soccer practice, band rehearsals, studios. Yo, can I get a ride? You know what I'm saying? So DACA allowed us to do those things. Start a business, start an LLC. When it was first passed, we were able to travel outside of the United States, but we needed what's this called? We needed deferred action. You know what I'm saying? We needed deferred action. Not deferred action. Advanced parole. Advanced parole. You have to pay like a fee, and then when you pay the fee, that just pretty much allows you to come back. They give you like a specific time you can stay out of the country. But when Trump got in office, he tried to take it off. Try to remove it.
He tried to completely remove DACA.
Right. So he tried to completely remove DACA, and you know what I'm saying? Like it didn't go through, but
because of the Supreme Court.
Right.
Some of his own Supreme Court justices, I believe, voted against him in trying to overturn DACA.
Right. Right. So that didn't go through. Like, you know, it was a fight because like my story was presented to the Supreme Court along with like 5 other, you know, individuals. Some creative, some not creative.
Your story was presented to the Supreme Court. Wow.
There's a whole like documentary piece where I'm just talking about the same thing that I'm saying here. Like, this is what I had to do at 16. This is why DACA is important to me. I can stay here and work and do all these things. You know, that didn't go through, but so to sign up for DACA was about like $500. Then you have to renew it. Originally, it was every 3 years. It went down to 2 years. It went down. Now it's down to like, I think it's down to a year, renewing it every year. So for a person like me, that's $1,000 that I have to think about, you know, for my sister and I. Or, you know, now she's working, she could probably cover it herself. But like, or figure out how to help out. But other families, you have like 3 Daca recipients. That's 1,500. That's 2 bands that you gotta try to find. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So like, yeah, man, it's just been a very interesting road, and with the new administration, we're trying to figure out like, okay, like what are the plans for undocumented individuals like myself?
Yeah. So let's pull up some actual Bible verses. Okay, for those of you guys that are believers in Jesus, those of you guys that consider yourself followers of Jesus, we see this temperament and this desire to want to legislate certain Christian morality while ignoring others. And if you look out all throughout the scriptures, there's this idea of welcoming the foreigner, welcoming the stranger, right? I'll pull you guys up one of my favorite ones. This is from Deuteronomy. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribe. So this is establishing God as the God of God. He is the superior being. There is no one above him. And then verse 18. And this, you will find this all throughout Scripture. You will find this all throughout Scripture. This is Deuteronomy 10. Okay, you made me lose my place for asking me that, but that's okay. Where was I? All right, Deuteronomy 10:17. For the Lord is God and the great mighty, awesome. He defends, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and of the widow. He defends the cause of the fatherless and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. And you are to also love those who are foreigners. For you yourselves were foreigners. You yourselves were foreigners, right? You yourselves were foreigners. And so this is the temperament. This is all throughout the Old Testament. Now in the New Testament, in Hebrews 11, it says this, Hebrews 11:13. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. So it tells us very explicitly to accept the foreigner for we are foreigners, right? To accept those that are strangers, accept those. Now, I'm not sitting here advocating for open borders and let anybody come just because. That's not what I'm advocating for. What I'm saying is for the people that are already here, people that are basically, if you're here from 9, you're American. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are indoctrinated in American culture. You are fairly assimilated to American way of life. You are American. For those people that are already here, been here, and I know folks that when I worked at after-school programs, there was, dozens of kids that were born in Mexico. Maybe they came over, there were 1 or 2, right? Folks that don't even speak Spanish,
yeah, right?
And so, what is the compassionate thing to do? I'm not advocating opening borders for everybody, but what is the compassionate thing to do now that we're already here? Obama sets up this DACA thing. It was a way to defer action, and it wasn't even a direct path to citizenship.
It's not.
It was just, hey, we can delay this and push this out while I guess we figure out what to do with y'all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Talk about that. Like, what was the actual, you know what I mean?
I saw a comment that said America can't take the whole world. No undocumented individual is asking America to take the whole world.
Say it again.
Like, that's I don't know where you got that from what I said.
Yeah.
Nobody asked that.
And nobody's advocating for open borders.
Nobody. Yeah. Like there are certain undocumented individuals, immigrants that come and they cause a lot of problems. We're not asking to keep those people, but the people that are in the United States contributing to the economy, there are certain jobs that certain privileged individuals won't and will never do, or they've never thought of doing. Mm-hmm. This is no shade to the Latino community, but like, how are you cutting your own grass? Like, is the person that cuts your own grass Latino, or the person cleaning your house African or Nigerian? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're able to do that yourself, then I guess you can speak. But if not, like, let the people who are helping move this country forward,
Mm-hmm.
give them a better living situation.
Yep.
Like, that's all, everyone's asking for. Nobody's saying take the whole world. Like,
Yeah.
you can't, and you won't, and you shouldn't. Not everyone wants to be in America.
Yeah. Yeah,
know?
yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, it's like, people are like, oh, they're stealing jobs. What jobs?
What jobs? Like, I can't. What jobs? How many? Outside of just being an immigrant, how many black folks are even in corporate America?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
how many corporate America jobs are open to black people?
Mm-hmm.
Talk less about undocumented immigrants, like black and Latino immigrants. Like, what jobs are we really stealing?
Mm-hmm.
Certain individuals, to me, are just lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like what jobs exactly are you talking about?
Yeah.
We're being fed all this information, and then I think we just live in like a really big echo chamber,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody does research. So you see a headline, and you're like, yeah, they're stealing jobs. What jobs?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, before DACA, you weren't legally allowed to work.
Yep.
Before DACA, you weren't actually. It was impossible for you to legally steal jobs because you couldn't even get a W-2
Exactly.
if you don't have a social, right?
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother. That's a,
like, how can you steal a job if you're not even legally allowed to steal the job?
Right. And so I think that's important to know. But let's not get too in
Yeah.
the weeds. That is the scriptural position. And again, if you're a Christian, that's just what it says. Don't be mad at me. Take it up with the writer of Hebrews. Take it up with the writer of Deuteronomy when you get to heaven. Take it up with Moses. Don't be mad at me because that's what the scriptures say. It says to be welcoming. It says to receive, and it says to care for. It says to feed. That's what it says. Now, we have already said what we're not advocating for, which is not open borders, and we're not advocating for everybody coming over here. If you're hearing that, then at this point you're hearing what you want to hear and not what's actually being said. Right. So, DACA passes. Now you have to hold down this paying for these things, right? And it's not even a direct path to citizenship or any of that kind of stuff. It's just kind of delaying it and giving you time. Really, it's buying you time, right? Which is wild to think about. What would have happened if Trump would have gotten his way and overturned DACA?
So, there are children that are being held in detention at certain borders, port of entries, or just in general, children that are younger than 10 being separated from their parents. Mm-hmm. Now, think about yourself when you were 0 to 10. Like, how much were you taking care of yourself? So think about these children that are being separated and these kids that are being detained. Mm-hmm. They have detention centers for children.
Yeah.
Not like. So imagine that and worse. Like not being able to work, not being able to leave your house and drive. Like a lot of, like it's just really crazy. Not being able to provide for your family. The fear of being deported, the fear of being like sent back to your country almost with nothing because you won't be able to leave with whatever it is that you feel like you saved or whatever. So it's just like from that place where like kids are being separated from their parents and worse. That's what would have happened if Trump had his way. Yeah.
And your dad got deported. Would it have been possible for your mom or you to get deported?
That's a good question. I think it could have. I think we were just favored. Like they just sent my dad back. Like, and my dad asked to leave because if not, he would probably be in detention. So
he'd still be right now.
Yeah, he'd still be in jail right now.
Sheesh, that's crazy. So now, hopefully that gives you guys some context when you're talking about, how again. What are we doing with people that are already here? How do we navigate the folks that have been here since they were kids? What is the most compassionate way to do that? Do we separate them from their parents? Do we send their parents back and keep them here? Do we send one parent back and keep, all of these things have ripple effects, right? And you guys have heard some of RG's story. I wanted you guys to hear Mannywellz' story because I think it's important to have a context. And what would you have done if you were in his shoes? Like, what would you have done if you were his dad? What would you have, you know what I mean? Like, so it's very narrow to view this, like, America first, nationalistic, we're the best, we're God's country, right? and again, yesterday I did a thing about healthy exegesis, right? And so if you're reading the Bible and you're substituting Israel and children of God for America, that's not a healthy exegesis. That's what we call narcigesis. That's where you're inferring meaning to the scriptures. That scriptures is not about America, right? You're not David going to fight Goliath. Like, the scriptures are about the scriptures and what happened in those passages. Right. So we have to extract, what does the principle say, right? What is the spirit of the law, and how do we navigate these conversations? And I think it's very reasonable to say, hey, people that are already here, children that were born here, folks that have been here for decades. We're talking about folks that have been here for decades. I'm not saying, hey, if somebody's a violent criminal, if somebody has a history of being in gangs, we're not talking about those people, right? We're not talking about those people. We're talking about folks that have been here for decades, grew up here, are contributing to taxes, right? So whether or not they're working under the table, quote unquote, they are paying taxes. They're paying sales taxes. Yeah, he pays taxes, right? So now, as the election came around, what was your personal temperament towards the whole Biden versus Trump thing, and what was kind of the hope that what would Biden's, like, ideally what would Biden's policies look like in this type of situation?
From the little that I do know, I think that I've seen and that I've heard, Biden is supposed to help create like a pathway to some type of citizenship for undocumented individuals, not nobody outside of the states right now.
So we're talking about people who are here already,
yes,
having a path to citizenship.
Yes.
If you're watching this and you're offended by that, I think you really got to stop and check your heart. Why would you be offended for folks that are here already, been here for 5, 10, 20 years, and them having a path to citizen? Why is that? I don't get why anybody would think that's a bad idea for folks that have been here already.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah, so it's supposed to create some type of path to citizenship, and we're going to see how it plays out, and I believe that he'll, something's going to happen in favor of that. But with Trump, there was no real plan. It was just all like bluff and like, like, give us the wall, or like, give us money to do the wall. If I do the wall, I'll do this for you guys. And like, it made no sense because I might be wrong, but there was a point where it was like asking for a wall, and then if he gave me a green card or a citizenship type situation, I would put my parents and my mom in jeopardy. Like, how does that make sense, and how is that right, and how is that God's will? How is somebody, I really don't understand how somebody who's not really outright about the things that even certain Christians are claiming that he's about. Like, I don't understand how, like, we're all rallying behind to support, and not we all, but majority, like, and a lot of Christians are saying that he's against abortion, he's against the LGBTQ community. And like, when have we really heard Trump say that with his own mouth? Like, Trump only cares about himself and his rich friends, and a lot of people that support him aren't rich. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, like, and when you look into like accountants and like tax brackets, if you don't fall into a certain tax bracket, it doesn't, he some of the things that he wants to do wouldn't really favor you. So on top of that, like, just basic love your neighbor as yourself. How is separating kids from their parents younger than 10, how does that equate to God's love?
Right.
Like, how is that kid supposed to figure out life at 9? All I wanted to do at 9 was play soccer. Like, I think I wasn't thinking about bills. If I had money, I was buying candy. So like, a kid is just gonna live off of candy for the rest of it. Right. He or she's life. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man.
So what about folks that would say, well, it was Biden and Obama that really built the cages for the kids? It was really, they were doing some stuff that wasn't helpful to immigrants. What would your response? And I'll be completely honest, I'm not that versed on. I think there's some precedent that they did build some of those facilities, and they were already there in terms of what we saw with kids being split at the border. But what would your response be to someone that says, well, Obama wasn't that great on immigration himself?
if Obama didn't care about immigrants, and I don't think DACA would be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have all the answers and I don't know everything. That's kind of news to me that Biden and Obama created these cages for kids. And if that's true, that's something I need to learn more about. But if that's true, why would DACA exist to help people like myself to go to school, get a job, start a business, and just be law-abiding citizens, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? So like that's my response to that. Like why would
he try to do DACA
that?
And try to write some of this stuff if
Exactly.
he was born immigrant? That's a
I
good
think
point.
with Obama, he was more so, I might be wrong, but I think he was more so deporting individuals that committed crimes. So like if you maybe killed somebody or like, you know, whatever crime you commit, I think they were deporting those individuals. I'm not here to protect or fight for Obama.
Sure.
I'm just here to say that if Obama was doing all that, why would DACA exist?
Yeah, that's good. I went to New York in May. Me and my family went to the Statue of Liberty. This is another thing that's really hard for me to rectify with some folks that are very nationalistic, and I just don't get it, right? And again, I have bias. I'm an immigrant. I have family that have came over here illegally, right? Because of the same thing. Hey, we're going to come here on a travel visa. We're going to stay. Then we're going to try to get a lawyer and fight the appeals process or whatever, right? And that's not right? Like we're not saying like, yeah, you should overstay your visa and come on a travel visa and stay longer, right? But when I went to the Statue of Liberty in New York, and I thought the Statue of Liberty growing up, I thought like that is what represented America, right? Like that is what we were about, right? And it talked about what it said on the Statue of Liberty, which, you know, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore, right? This is what's on the statue. This is like the symbol of America to the world. This is like growing up as a kid. I thought this was what America was for. Like, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, right? And I always think it's interesting how selective certain people are with that, right? With that symbol of the Statue of Liberty, the symbol of liberty, the symbol of, hey, come here, and we'll figure it out. And so it's wild to me that folks will say, oh, well, that was only for a specific period of time when America needed more people, or that only apply, or maybe they feel like that only applies to specific people from specific countries or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I just never understood how some people can reconcile that. And by the way, if you guys are concerned about overpopulation, here's a fun fact. Did you know that the entire population, all 50 million of Americans, can all live in the state of Texas and have 2,000 square feet each?
Wow.
The entire population of the United States can all fit into the state of Texas, and every person have 2,000 square feet.
Wow, that's a good fact.
So this notion that we don't have enough space, right? We don't have enough space. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough, like, listen, abundance over scarcity. The universe is infinite in resources. That I don't mean to sound like super mystical or whatever. That just is, right? Like that if you look at, I was telling Manny earlier, there's 3D printers that are printing houses right now. Like there's villages being built with 3D printing houses, right? There's so much that's going to happen with regards to abundance, technology, innovation. How much easier it is to make food now than it was 100 years ago. How much easier it is to make food now 50 years ago. There's abundance. And again, I'm not advocating for open borders, but the notion that there isn't enough, that the notion that we have to be scarce, that we have to guard our own. Capitalism is where there's a free market and people can add value by providing services or goods to other people and people consume. Infinite need, limited supply. There's always going to be needs and there's always going to be a limited supply. The more their supply is, the more those needs would get fulfilled. This is like macroeconomics 101. So a lot of people, I just don't think understand how economics works, how space and where you live work. There's so many things here that it just blows my mind. And again, I don't know every person that comes over. I'm not talking about people that come over and do crimes. I'm not talking about any of that kind of stuff, right? And Manny, if you could share, now that you guys do have DACA, I keep probably saying it right. It's DACA. Is it DACA?
It's DACA. I say
okay.
DACA, yeah.
DACA. Now that you do have DACA, you pay this $500 a year, and it allows you to have an LLC.
Yeah.
To be able to travel, to be able to pay taxes, because you're a small business owner, right? Don't get it twisted. Manny's a full-time musical artist. He's been in California for a month working on stuff. So it gives you an opportunity to contribute back into society.
It does. So with DACA, I was able to get a social security number, work authorization, which allows me to go into Google, how do I start LLC? And the social security number is what you need to provide usually to get your business started. And then they give you an EIN for your small business. So with that, whatever I make, I have to pay taxes. I'm a small business owner, an entrepreneur. So without DACA, I wouldn't be able to do any of that. And as a DACA recipient, I'm always looking to help that community. So like we've done like for the song No More that we played, we had a portion where like all the streams when the pandemic first hit, all the whatever we made from the streams was going to certain DACA organizations to help undocumented people that were hit heavy by the pandemic, because we all were, but then there were certain people who had nothing, like people like you couldn't even get paid under the table anymore because there was no table. You know what I'm saying? So we've had situations like that. We printed out merch that whatever we made from that, all the proceeds just go to like, black undocumented immigrants in the United States. So making money, paying taxes, not just that, taking the same money that I could just selfishly hold on to and putting it back into the community. So we're helping the economy, paying taxes, and then we're reaching back to this, like the community, the society, to help people, because I can't live well and the next person to me is hungry, crying, starving. Like I don't think that's Christ-like.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
It is difficult to know whether illegal immigrants are more likely to commit crimes than native-born Americans. All immigrants have a lower crime incarceration rate, and there are lower crime rates in neighborhoods where they live. Okay, so the false notion that it's violent people coming over here, rapists coming over here, right, is not true based on the fact that illegal immigrants are less likely to be incarcerated and there are lower crime rates in their neighborhood. Probably because they're trying to stay out the way and not be caught up, right? So if somebody here illegally, they're probably not going to be committing more crimes because they're trying to not be on the radar. You know what I mean? So, okay, so your mother is in America. Your dad is back in Nigeria. Your mom can't travel outside of the state. Can you explain why is that? I didn't quite understand. You're because you have the recipient. Why can your mom? She obviously her immigration status is different than yours. Yeah. Okay, so talk about that.
So I mean, we both came on the same visiting visa, but my mom isn't even the DACA recipient because she was too old. DACA is deferred action for childhood arrivals. So DACA only covers myself and my sister. But I think when you get your driver's license, your ID, there's something on your ID that indicates whether you can leave. It says like for federal purposes, something like that, or not for federal purposes, and that means that you can't travel outside of whatever state that you're in on like a plane. You can probably drive, but like what does it look like driving from Maryland to Texas where your brother lives? That's like maybe a two day, drive. You know what I'm saying? Like, and yeah.
That's a bummer. So your mom can't move around. She can't go back to Nigeria and come back here.
Nope.
Even if she wanted to go visit your dad, you can't. Can you go back to Nigeria?
I can go. I can't come back either.
So if you were to go back to Nigeria to visit your dad, to go do some shows, to go do some shows and bring back and pay taxes on the money, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. You could potentially get caught up and not be able to come back.
I wouldn't be able to come back at all. Like, at all.
Sounds like a broken system, guys.
It's very broken. It's very broken, man. It's very broken.
So right now, even though you are a law-abiding resident in America, you pay taxes, you run a small business, as of right now, there's no path to citizenship for you.
There is no path to citizenship. I went on tour with Jadena, and I couldn't go to Canada to do the Canada show. Like, we had fans tweeting us and sending me messages on IG like, yo, like, we're excited to see you. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I wouldn't be able to make it.
You couldn't even go to Canada
I
to do
cannot
a
go
show.
to Canada.
And you're paying taxes.
Yes. I'm paying taxes in the United States, and I'm contributing to the economy. Big or small, it doesn't matter. People like myself are adding to this country, the United States that we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is wild, guys. I mean, you know, I want you guys to just to have different exposures, different experiences for someone that's doing everything they're supposed to be doing. Manny didn't get to choose the fact that he was brought over here on a travel visa that got overstayed.
Right.
Like, he didn't get to choose that.
Right.
And for any of you guys that'll be like, yeah, well, guess he should just go back to Nigeria and start at the end of the line. like really, like especially those of y'all that consider yourself Bible believing Jesus followers. You think that's how you should, like, that's the solution for this? And I think the issue for a lot of us that were paying attention to Trump is there was no plan. It was, we're going to try to overdo DACA, and there is no plan. There is no, we're going to come up with a different way to do it. We're going to create a path to amnesty. We're going to create a path to citizenship, a path to legal. There was no other way. It was just, hey, this is what it is, and I'm going to try to overdo it. And it was the same thing with Obamacare. It was like he's trying to overdo affordable health care in the middle of a pandemic. And would he be asked, well, what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to do better plans. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Well, what are you going to do? What's the plan? Well, it's going to be fantastic. It's just like, oh, it doesn't sound like you have a plan. It sounds like you're capping. And this is not for me to, promote Biden. I didn't vote for Biden, but it is just to give us some critical thought on these issues. So, anything else you want to add on the topic of DACA?
Man, not really. I just hope it sinks in for people, and I hope that especially Christians could just search their hearts, just really do some soul and heart searching, and just get in a scripture, like we're supposed to be in the scripture and reason with one another. This is not an argument. This is a space where, like, you promote dialogue and take what has been discussed and do research on it, learn about it. Like, how are you helping the next person? Like, it says love your neighbor as yourself, not love the citizen as yourself, not love the American as yourself. Like, the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. So, like the Bible isn't just for America. The Bible is for the whole world. As children of God, we're supposed to love the next person. Yeah. Period.
And can there be, as of right now, there's no path for your mom for citizenship. And maybe someday there will be.
Yeah. That's the prayer that, like, you know, maybe, not maybe when something happens for us that I would then be able to get my mom situated. But then even the process for that, like, imagine being in the States for 15 years and then you got to wait another 25 years to just get your green card, and then another 5 years to get your citizenship. You're already like 60, 70. Yeah. Like, you've lived a full life in fear.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, man. That's a bummer. Okay. That's a bummer. So let's talk about SARS and what's going on back in Nigeria with SARS. And you intentionally did not put together. And by the way, guys, just to, we don't know the solution. Like, we don't have the solution on how to fix this. We're saying, hey, this is what it is. This is how it works for somebody in Manny's situation. Be knowledgeable, be empathetic. He told y'all to search your own heart. I'm gonna say some of y'all hearts is wicked and gross. Search the scriptures. Go search the scriptures and what the scriptures say, right? And let that determine how your heart is directed. But we're not saying we have the solutions, right? We're saying, hey, this is an issue. We need to fix it. We don't know what the solutions are. I think there's very reasonable solutions. Create a path to citizenship for these folks. They've been here since they were kids. Period. Like, done deal. I mean, that's the solution to me. But for whatever reason, for political reasons, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a solution. And Jamal, I see you, bro. You keep saying this.
Like how?
Like Jamal, hop in a Zoom call, bro. It costs you $4. If that's an issue, I'll cash out you $4 after you hop in a Zoom call. We're gonna go to the Zoom call shortly. You're saying this, but you're not backing it up. Okay. I'm sorry about your situation, man, but illegal immigration has hurt African Americans. I am pro-African American. American has, based on what? Like, what illegal immigrants, how, you have to, what studies are you talking about? I just pulled up a study that said they're less likely to be incarcerated, less likely to commit violent crimes, by and large. So what are you basing this on besides, did you hear this on Fox News? Like, did you hear this on Breitbart? Where did you hear this, and what is it based on? That's what I would like to know, because everything I've looked at says the complete opposite. Because as far as I know, illegal immigrants that are coming over, even from Mexico or Honduras, aren't taking blue-collar jobs. That's not what's happening. They're working in the farms. They're working on the fields. They're working on landscaping, right? They're not... I don't know. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time harping on Jamal. If Jamal wants to talk, Jamal can talk. Leaving comments over and over, though, isn't going to get us anywhere, Jamal. You're just essentially then just, venting in a YouTube chat session that does no good for you or anyone involved. But anyway, let's talk about what's going on back in Nigeria with SARS. Seems from everything that I've seen, reckless, wild policing, disregard of human life.
Terrible.
And very little accountability or anybody checking them. So can you just update us on what is the SARS situation and what's happening in Nigeria with this?
So SARS stands for Special Anti-Robbery Squad. I think it started in '92.
Mm-hmm.
It started in '92, and it was created to arrest or get people that are committing crimes, theft,
Mm-hmm.
stealing things,
Mm-hmm.
like anti-robbery. That's all they were created for.
Mm-hmm.
But now we live in a space where, like, individuals like myself from Nigeria are very, they're hip to the game. They're hip to YouTube. They're hip to technology, Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Kids in Nigeria like myself are making money from Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, everywhere in the world, there's always illegal activity.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere in the world. So there are certain individuals that, get their money in ways that aren't legal.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's always a small number, the people that actually commit some of these crimes. So, but what these guys do is they pull individuals that look like me.
Mm-hmm.
I got my bandana, I got my earrings, I got my chain,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Oh, you are one of those illegal kids they're doing this,"
Mm-hmm.
and then they take advantage of their power, and because they don't. One, I think it's just filled with hate and jealousy,
Mm-hmm.
which I think ties back to colonization,
Mm-hmm.
which is a topic that we won't even get into because that's a whole other situation.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, from this hate and jealousy, they are shooting. They rape women in broad daylight. Women.
And these are police officers.
These are police officers with guns. Like, my friend has been shot at. My cousin that I showed you,
the music video, yeah.
they've been arrested and beat.
By fellow Nigerian police officers.
Yes. So I didn't even know that SARS was a thing. I just thought Nigerian police officers were corrupt. But because of everything that's going on, there's something going on in the world right now, and people are crying out for a change, not just in the United States but all over. Even for black people. And, like, the kids were like, no, like, we can't have this no more. This has been happening for generations, and our parents were too scared to speak up. But I'm not scared to say what I have to say from the United States. And my friends, my family, my cousins in Nigeria aren't scared to speak up. Like, we're done with this. So there were protests to end SARS. There was supposed to be like meetings but even in the midst of the protests, they were still killing people.
I saw a video. Yeah, I saw a video. The video was horrendous.
Bro, it was they were still killing people, protesting peacefully. Like, hey, we're not even saying, like, some people aren't even saying no more police officers. We're just saying stop killing us. Like, we want to just live a fulfilling life. We want to make our money and love our families, and that's it. But they don't see it that way. They just generalize. And that comes from a broken system, you know, to some extent, because some of these police officers aren't even getting paid $250 in a month. So they have to live on like $250 and then feed a family of 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, you know, like feed their family. Yeah. And
so the police officers aren't getting paid well.
They are not.
And then they see people that appear to be maybe more successful. So then they are and they're lumping them in as robbers and people committing illegal crimes, taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
And the police are robbing people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like if you it's crazy, bro.
It's crazy. Welcome to 2020, where the police in Nigeria are supposed to be stopping the robbers, that they're robbing other people in the name of law enforcement.
If you get pulled over, I don't know if it's possible to live in peace without paying them off or getting hurt. There's no, like, I haven't heard of like much of a middle ground. Or you have to like my friend that got shot at, they had to, like, the Uber driver had to like just swerve off. This happened last year in December. This December.
Jeez. So your heart, Toby's heart, a lot of brothers from Nigeria, from different parts of Africa, are really just trying to amplify the corruption that's happening in Nigeria with regards to SARS. And it brings an interesting question, which I think people always kind of get caught up in, right? Which is like, in Compton right now, there's a gang called the Executioners, a police gang. This story is slowly going viral. Art Gonzalez blew the whistle on them. And these folks are it's a predominantly white and Hispanic gang, and they have to get matching tattoos of a skeleton with an AK-47, and they have to kill somebody to get in this gang. To get in. So this is here in Southern California. And the pushback I get is when you see these situations, is people will say, well, how can Mexican police officers be racist against Mexicans? How can black police officers be racist against black? And that just shows that most people don't understand the concept of what racism actually is. Right. That racism is believing that a group is inferior, even if you believe your own people are inferior to you because of whatever warped worldview you have. So this is happening right now in Compton, where there's the gang called the Executioners. The case is slowly going viral of a young man that was killed, and they're saying he was killed because this cop was trying to join this gang and he wanted to get his ink, and you could only get ink if you had killed somebody. This is happening here. And Art, you guys could Google this story, Art Gonzalez. I've actually been meaning to reach out to him and try to get this whistleblower cop, who I think is a national hero, in my opinion. No one's talking about this. They ruined this dude's life for blowing the whistle. Wow. Followed all the proper protocol, and his complaint got intercepted by this gang called the Executioners. And so this is like a big mess. But this is with Mexican police officers, Mexican, Asian, and white. But primarily it looks like Mexican police officers killing other Mexican citizens. Wow. And somebody will say, well, that's not a race thing, right? And in Nigeria, you have Nigerian police officers killing Nigerian citizens, right? So it's a corruption of power. It's a class thing. And in America, classism has been around since the dawn of time. In America, classism, we've masqueraded and masked our classism, and it made it racism here. But you can absolutely have a bias against even your own people and hate your own people or your own culture. And if you are in a power position, view them as inferior. This is across any identity. You know what I mean? I was talking to my mom, bro, and I'm Armenian, and my mom was telling me that the Armenians from Armenia, I was telling her about what was going on with the Karabakh and the Azerbaijani and Armenian conflict over the Karabakh state. And I was telling her about this stuff, and she was trying to tell me that the Armenians from Armenia are inferior to our Armenians who are in Baku. Right? It's racist. Son, you're racist. Like, how do you...
That's really crazy.
Right? It's like, oh, they're just kind of a, you know, I forgot what she said in Russian. It's just like, yo, you're literally right there. You're racist. So there is a degree where folks can hate their own and not even know that maybe it is a byproduct of colonization. It is a byproduct of a power complex, a byproduct of a broken system that police officers aren't being paid the right amount or don't have proper training. Talk about that a little bit, because it doesn't make sense when you look at it on the surface, but it's that age-old thing, like absolute power, you know, absolutely corrupts.
Yeah, like it's such a real thing, because in Nigeria there is no middle class, almost doesn't even exist. So it's like you're really rich, you're almost rich, and then you're poor. So like that middle class doesn't exist. And there's a lot of hatred from people that have nothing in comparison to the people that have something, that have everything. And this everything is mainly people in the government. You have senators that get paid like $1 million like per year. Senators, not even like the president or people higher than them. You know what I'm saying? So that hatred, and that's where these police officers are being taken from people that have nothing, because they need to survive and they need to provide for their families. And they're police officers without proper training. Some of them don't even know how to hold and shoot a gun properly. But they need to eat. And this comes from, like you said, corruption, and honestly just colonization, and just like the white Europeans creating a system where, like, okay, we're going to put certain people in power in Africa, and we're going to own them, and then we're going to milk Africa, take all the resources, all the money, the oil, the diamonds, everything, and we're going to give this group of people just a tiny bit, and then we're just going to run them forever. But our generation is like, that's very dead. Like, we're not rocking with that. So, and I think this is a longer game plan and a longer fight, but the same way, like, here everyone's fighting to put certain people in power and positions and hold them accountable.
Yeah. It's
the same way and starting in Nigeria, we're trying to put the right people now in power and hold them accountable. This is what you promised. This is what you said. Have you done it or not? If not, there has to be a system where, like, we can check you, because the people run, not one person, like, no one place should exist in a dictatorship. Like the people, the collective have to, we're the society, we have to run stuff. So that's what's really happening.
That's so sad, man. Yeah. I just learned this concept, and I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's this idea of absolute poverty versus relative poverty. And people often say, you know, hey, poverty is tied to crime, poverty is tied to theft, poverty is tied to robbery. People misbehave because of poverty. And the truth is that absolute poverty is when you don't have clean water, when you don't have food, shelter, right? Absolute poverty. Like, you're living on less than, there's a world standard of a couple of dollars a day, right? And it's different, obviously. Absolute poverty in New York is different than absolute poverty somewhere else. But absolute poverty, somebody doesn't have their basic needs, they can starve, they don't have food, they don't have shelter. Most crime is attributed to relative poverty and what degree of people living together. So if somebody has their needs met, but they're living next to millionaires, that will be a higher crime area, because they're living around people who have higher means than they do. Right. So it's absolute, because people in absolute poverty are literally just trying to get clean drinking water and survive and not die. Right. But people in relative poverty, if the higher the gap between them, the more the crime is likely to be. So that's why you see a lot of these places, like New York, Atlanta, you know, Chicago, LA, where you have multi-millionaires and multi-million-dollar homes within a 10-15 mile radius of people living, you know, Yes, they got their needs met. Yes, they have food and shelter, but it just creates, the inequality creates a wild system where people are then, there's a degree of envy, like you said. You got these police officers who aren't making that much money, and maybe they're seeing these students, and these students come from almost rich families, and so they're taking advantage of them. But it creates that, and that's usually where most of our crime goes back to, violent crime, and is attached to status and wanting power, wanting to, you know, if it's too hard to climb from being poor to being a little rich, you then do it by violence. You do it by brute force. And it's a really interesting concept of absolute poverty versus relative poverty, and that's why we see more violence in more industrialized nation, where if people in absolute poverty, bro, they're just trying to live. Like, they just want to get clean water, not get sick, you know what I mean? Not get a disease, and keep it pushing. And so that sounds like some of the issue in Nigeria. The police officers aren't starving. There are people that are starving, but the proximity of everybody being around each other is creating this wild tension where now people are hurting and killing their own.
Yeah. You hit it on the money. Is that how you say it?
Mainstream entertainment. Ruslan.